previous class, we have come to know that is The Secret of Work is written by Swami Vivekananda. The next part of it, I shall read it and explain it. This is really what is meant by character. Each man's character is determined by the sum of total of these impressions. You know, very well, the mind is just like a clean slate. When baby is born, the thoughts, the impressions do get what come to the mind. Total impressions decide the character of an individual. Here, impressions means thoughts. You know very well, mind has no gates. Thoughts pouring out will be coming. Nearly 72,000 of thoughts usually a day an individual experiences. If good impressions prevail, the character becomes good. If you go on allow good impressions, good thoughts, then one can be treated as a good character. If bad, it becomes a bad. If bad impressions are allowed, bad thoughts are allowed, he is known as a bad character. If a man continuously hears bad words, thinks bad thoughts, does bad actions, his mind will be filled of bad impressions only. You see, you would have been come across in Telugu, Satsangam. Satsangam means if a man who always be in the company of a good people, he will become a good character. If a man who always thinks bad, does bad, and allow thoughts bad, then he is known as a bad character. So an individual can decide how he should be, whether to be a good or bad. If at all he wanted to be good, impression should be allowed good, and his joining with the people should be good, and also his deed should be good, and so on. And they will influence his thoughts and work without his being conscious of the fact. For example, if he goes on allows bad thoughts, then they will influence his mind, even in unconscious mind also, or subconscious mind also, then it makes him to do always bad. In fact, these bad impressions are always working and their resultant must be evil. Bad impressions, bad company, bad or thoughts or bad deeds, all will result in evil doing. That means they always try to do evil. Even in the subconscious mind also, that might have got recorded, and that is what they always tries to do bad only instead of good. And that man will be bad man. He cannot help it. The sum total of these impressions in him will create the strong motive, power for doing bad actions. So the sum total of all this impression, the sum total of all thoughts make him bad. Suppose if sum total of impressions, sum total of thoughts or deeds are good, naturally he became a good character. He will be like a machine in the hands of his impression. An individual become a machine. You know, if you switch on, the machine starts working. If switch off, the machine stops. Similarly, the impressions drive the individuals. The impressions or thoughts or deeds of a man, if they are good, he will go in a good things. And if he is doing always bad, then he become a bad character. So, man becomes a machine under his impression. Man becomes a machine under the thoughts or deeds of him. Similarly, if a man thinks good thoughts and does good work, the sum total of these impressions will be good, and they, in similar manner, will force to hear to the good even in spite of himself. When a man has done so much good work and thought so many good thoughts, and there is an irresistible tendency in him to do good in spite of himself, and even if he wishes to do evil, his mind and the sum total of his tendencies will not allow him to do so. The tendencies will turn him back. When such is the case, a man's good character is said to be established. So here, if a man who allows good thoughts, makes them nourished, grow like anything, and do good deeds, then in subconscious mind also, it will never allow the man to do all kinds of bad activities. So that is what it's all the sum total of impressions. Even without being known to him also, he will always try to do good for the society. So that is about the things we do come across from here. As the tortoise tucks its feet and head inside its shell, and you may kill it and break in pieces, and yet it will not come out. Even so, the character of that man who has control over his motives and organs is unchangingly established. Here he has given an example. Tortoise, you know tortoise. A tortoise is a rather a very peculiar animal which we can find in the water. Tortoise always tucks its head inside its shell. The outer part of the tortoise is a very hard substance. Even if anybody tries to kill it also, it will never come out. Such a way, a man who is trained properly, a man who has every control on the senses, will never do any kind of bad activity, just like a tortoise. If there is any danger, tortoise takes its body inside and will never come out unless until it feels safe. Similar such way, the character is also the same. One who has trained up very well and control his senses, he will be a good character. He controls his own inner forces and nothing can draw them out against will. Against his will, nothing can be done. With his will only, everything is to be performed. Everything is to be spoken. Everything is to be done. So that is what against his will, nothing cannot be done. So that means the will means willingly person has to do it. Unwillingly, nothing cannot be done. By this continuous reflex of good thoughts, good impression, moving over the surface of the mind. On the surface of the mind, everything good, and taking everything positive attitude. The tendency for doing good becomes strong. Yes, I am a man born for doing good. I am a boy, I have to work for good. I am a man, work for perfection. If I start going for that, that impression becomes stronger in the mind and will never do any kind of wrong. And as a result, we feel able to control the indriyas. You know indriyas. In Telugu, Sanskrit word, we have 5 indriyas are there. And if we have a clutch on it, the sensory organs, the nervous centers, thus alone will character be established. Then alone a man gets a truth such as a man is safe forever. One who has clutch, one who is controls all sensory organs. So these sensory organs, if he has a clutch on it and practice it very well and allow the sensory organs to have every good be prevailed, then he will never do any kind of evil and he will be safe by himself and also he will never do any kind of bad to the society. You may place him in any company. Suppose a person who has been trained very well, one who has a lot of control over senses, even if you place in the bad company, that fellow will never or he won't do any kind of wrongdoings or wrong things and so on. And that is the desire for liberation. Liberation means full freedom. Freedom from the bondage of good as well as from the bondage of evil. One need to lead a liberal life. Free from good, free from bad. A golden chain is as much a chain as an iron one. There is a thorn in my finger and I use another to take the first one out, and when I have taken it out, I throw both of them aside. You see, if a one thorn is in another hand, with other hand we try to pick it out, and after pluck it out, we throw it away. I have no necessity to keeping the second thorn. We try to take away the thorn with another thorn. Of course, that thorn helped us to take it out, but both are thorns. So after work, that they are to be thrown out. So sometimes evil has to be done with evil only, people used to say. but in such a way, a thorn which helps us to take away the other thorn should also be discarded. So the bad tendencies are to be counteracted by the good ones. The bad thoughts are to be counteracted with the good thoughts. There are so many methods are there. Whenever bad thoughts come into our mind, whenever bad impressions come into our mind, we have to counter it with the good thoughts. That is what you would have been come across. An idle man's mind is a devil's workshop. Suppose if a man doesn't have any other work, his mind may be going for wrong deeds and wrong thoughts, wrong impressions. So if at all we wanted to come out from that, it is always good for us to have counteraction with the good deeds, good impressions. We have to counter them. And the bad impressions on the mind should be removed by the fresh waves of good ones. Fresh waves, they are just like come like a frequency. The good waves, good impressions wave should remove or throw away the bad waves until all that is evil almost disappears or is subdued and held in control in a corner of the mind. But after that, the good. So that is what all gets disappeared. If you go on allow the fresh thoughts, fresh impressions, the evil can be discarded, vanished, disappeared from our mind. Thus, the attachment becomes unattached. Work, but let not the action or the thought produce a deep impression on the mind. Attachment and unattachment. The two words Swami Vivekananda used, attachment and unattachment. Work, let not your mind be, let not your thought produce a deep impression on the mind. Let the ripples come and go. Let the waves come and go. Let not be stored or linger in one particular point. Let huge actions proceed from the muscles and the brain. Let the muscles and brain proceed huge actions instead of stagnated actions, instead of very lazy actions, but let them not make any deep impression on the soul. So those impressions should never be on the soul. Muscles can be used, brain can be used, but those prejudiced impressions should never linger with the soul. So that is what Swami Vivekananda used. How can this be done? We see that the impression of any action to which we get attached remains. Whatever the impression we get it, then it should be set aside. It should not be lingered in the soul. I may meet hundreds of persons during the day, and among them meet also one whom I love, and when I retire at night, I may try to think of all the faces I saw, but only that face comes before the mind. In a day-to-day time, we used to come across large number of people, for so much of interaction used to be done, but when we go to bed, the only lovely face come to our mind that indicates what? That we got so pleased with it. Even with that also, we should not have any kind of attachment. He does it. The face which I met perhaps only for 1 minute, and which I loved, all the others have vanished. Nothing remains. Before going to bed, nothing remains our mind. It all should go away. Either it may be bad or a good or anything else. My attachment to this particular person caused a deeper impression. Why that lovely person comes to my mind before going to bed, because I had developed some attachment with him. Person, the impression on the mind that all the other faces, instead of all other faces coming to my mind, particularly I remembered that mind means I have a little more stronger impulse or impression developed with that. Physiologically, the impressions have all been the same. Really speaking, physiologically, all the impressions are the same. If human beings are there, 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, these all are common. Physiological changes are not there. But one particular face attracts me before going to bed means my stronger impression was there with it. Therefore, be unattached. That is what Swami Vivekananda suggests us to be unattached. Let the brain centers work incessantly. Never stop working. If you stop working, some bad thoughts will penetrate into your mind, or waves like ripples like they may be coming. That is what never stop working. Work incessantly, continuously, but let not the mind be affected. So, when you're working, your mind should not get affected. Lovingly, likingly, happily, joyously, we have to continue our work which are assigned to us. Work as if you were a stranger in this land, a sojourner. Work incessantly. Never think that you are a permanent resident here. You are taking a journey. Perhaps you would have been come across childhood, and you would have been come across teens, and then you would have been adulthood, and that's all. So this is not a permanent place for us. The earth is not a permanent place for us. We are just like a visitor, and we must continuously work until our last breath. But do not bind yourself. Bondage is a terrible. Do not bind to it. Do not be very particular to anything. If any particular thing binding is there, then he says, this world is not our inhabitation. This land is not our original inhabitation. This land is not a permanent one for us. It is only one of the many stages through which we are passing. There are so many stages are there. As a human being, we have come on to this land. We are a sojourner. We have to continuously work incessantly. We should continue work, but at any cost, we should not have any attachment to the work. So that is the thing being stated here. The gist of this teaching is that you should work like a master, but not like a slave. Whatever the work you are assigned, whatever the task we are assigned, then we must work like a master, but not like a slave. Grudgingly, rather mutteringly, or else murmuringly, we should not continue our work. We should work like a master, but not like a slave. Work incessantly, continuously, but do not do any slave's work. You know what's a slave work? Slave's work is a painful work. Don't do slave's work. Mind is there. If you want to be happy, you can be happy. If you want to be sorrowful, you can be sorrowful. Do not see how everybody works. Nobody can be strong altogether at rest. 99% of mankind work like slaves. In this very pitiable thing is 99% of the people are not working as masters. They are working like slaves. That is a pitiable thing, let us say. And the result is misery. As long as people work like slaves, that leads to misery. So that is what work like a master. Then I am working. I work. I never expect any kind of results for it. If you go and do that, then you will have every satisfaction and contentment. It is all selfish work. Everything has become a selfish work. I. Instead of them, I. Why can't we say we? Work through freedom, work through love. The word love is very difficult to understand. Here, he has used love. It is a very difficult and typical word to understand. Love never comes until there is a freedom. Love will come. Love can be developed where there is a freedom. Whatever the work assigned to the people, that lovingly, happily, joyously, they must accept it and do it without expecting any kind of results. Suppose bondage starts, it's a slave's work. When slave's work starts, misery will be there. And then if you buy a slave and tie him down in chains and make him work for you, he will work like a drudge. He will work like a slave. You won't get a man against his freedom and against his will. If he is put in a chains and work for you, it is a drudgery. He won't work with his mind and heart, but there will be no love in him. He doesn't feel love to show, to explain, to perform his work there. So when we ourselves work for the things, the world as slaves, there can be no love in us, and our work is not a true work. A work which we do without love, it is not a true work. A work which we do lovingly, happily, joyously is a true work according to Swami Vivekananda. This is a true work done for relatives and friends, and is true of work done for our own selves. So whenever we have to do a small thing also, then happily, joyously we have to do. Whatever the help you wanted to offer it also, wholeheartedly you have to help the people. Then only true love is there, and true that can be called as a true work. Selfish work is a slave's work. When a person who always works for his selfishness, that such work is called as a slave's work. Such work cannot be called as a master's work. And even God won't like it. And here is a test. Every act of love brings happiness. Every act of love. For example, if you are helping to a poor people, then lovingly you do it. Never think that as if it is your karma doing it, it cannot be. That is what every act of love brings happiness. There is no act of love which doesn't bring peace and blessedness as its a reaction. So if you want to get peace, if you want to get blessings of the gods and goddesses, then you should work with love. Without love, if a man who works, then it is nothing but it is against the will of the God. Real existence, real knowledge, and real love are eternally connected with one another. Real knowledge, real existence, and real love are eternally connected. They are godly, so that those things are to be developed with us. The three in one, where one of them is, the others also must be. They are the three aspects of the one without a second, the existence, knowledge, and bliss. We have our existence in this world. Right knowledge has to be obtained. That knowledge should have some wisdom, and every blissfulness automatically we can get it. So that is what if love means freedom should be there. The work means drudgery work should never be there. Lovingly, happily, joyously, one has to perform his work. This is not a permanent place for us. One day or other day, everyone has to quit the world. Until that time, we have to live with a great love. Krishna says, look at me, Arjuna. When things were going on there, when Gita was going on there, Bhagavad Gita was going on there, when Arjuna failed to wage a war against by seeing his opponents, he saw his cousins, he saw his grandfather, he saw his so many relatives. When he did not do war, Lord Krishna started saying like this: if I stop from work from one moment, the whole universe will die. Lord Krishna says that I am a person taking care of all the work, creation, destruction, demolition, everything. If I stop working, the whole universe will be disappeared and vanished, die. I have nothing gained from the work. I am doing my work without expecting anything. I am the one Lord, but why do I work? I am the Lord, why should I work? That is not there in my mind. I had to work. I had to make the people to look after it because I love the world. Because he has every love with the world. That is what he has been without. He is just like a God. He is just like a guard. He is guarding all the universe. God is unattached because he loves. That real love makes as unattached. Where there is a real love is there, it should be unattached, not it should be attached. To attain this unattachment is almost life work, but as soon as we have reached this point, we have attained the goal of love and become free. When we have this unattachment, then automatically we achieve our goal and we become free from the bondage of nature, falls from us, and we see nature as she is. So, nature also expects us, we should always be unattached. You would have been come across a drop on the lotus leaf, how it cannot make us, how it cannot absorbs. It only unattachment. Similar such way human life should be there with us according to Swami Vivekananda. Do you ask anything from your children in return for what you have given them? It is your duty to work for them. And there the matter ends. It is quite common when children are born, it is the duty of the parents to take care of them, to spend for their livelihood and also for their career. Their matter ends. They don't expect anything from their children. In whatever you do for the particular person or a city or a state, assume the same attitude towards it as you have towards your children. Expect nothing in return. How parents do not expect anything from the children, similarly is the case whenever you do something to a person or an individual or a state or a city. Similarly, you don't expect anything from it. How you do not expect from your children. That attitude is very much required. Suppose if you go on think that I am working for the city, I am working for the state, I am working for the people, and if you expect it, there is a problem. That is what that attitude should be set aside. If you can invariably take the position of a giver in which everything given by you is a free offering to the world without any thought of return, your work will bring you no attachment. Whatever the service you render to the people without any expectation or without any return, it is called as a unattachment. Without any attachment, if you do it, no doubt it is a great blessing thing, and then only people become a great people. Attachment comes only where we expect in return. Attachment comes only when we expect for our services to the people. It may be an individual, or it may be a state, or it may be a city, or it may be a general public, and so on. If working like slaves results in selfishness and attachment, if working like a slave results in selfishness and attachment, working as masters of our own mind gives rise to the bliss of non-attachment. Working as masters, working as slaves. In the previous paragraphs also we have come to know, work like a master but not like a slave. So, working like if you work slave work, selfish work, then it is nothing but an attachment. Working as masters, it is nothing but a non-attachment. Non-attachment brings every bliss from the God. We often talk of right and justice, but we find that in the world right and justice are merely a baby talk. Sometimes some people used to speak right and justice. They are a baby talk. What is right? We have to serve to the people because nothing has been got from when we are born. Everything acquired, everything is blessed by nature, everything is blessed by God. That's what it has to be given without any return according to it. Suppose if anybody says that it's a right and justice, these all are the words, even we created it. In the name of nature, in the name of God, they are not the things, they are all baby talk. He says, there are two things in which guide you the conduct of men, might and mercy. Might and mercy, both the things used to determine the character of men. The exercise of might is invariably the exercise of selfishness. Might is right. People used to say, I would have been Jangilla. The mightiest used to get survived. So it is a might. Whenever a person starts using a might, person using power, then it is a self. That's a exercise of selfishness. That is a selfish work. All men and women try to make the most of whatever power or advantage they have. Mercy is heaven itself. Might, whenever we use power, there is every selfishness. Whenever mercy, then it is nothing but heaven. To be good, we have all to be merciful. That is what Swami Vivekananda asks us to be very, very merciful on the earth. Even justice and right should stand on mercy. Justice and mercy should also stand on the row of mercy, kindness, benevolence, compassion. All thought of obtaining return for the work we do hinders our spiritual progress. Nay, in the end, it begins misery. Whenever we go for a selfish work, then it ends with misery or miseries. That means nothing but problems. There is another way in which the idea of mercy and selfless charity can be put into practice. Selfless charity should be put in practice. The ultimate people should do selfless charity. So if it is more than excess are there, they have to spend for the people who do not have a one-time meal. It's a common thing. It's a charity that is by looking upon works as worship. Works as worship. Here we give up all the fruits of our work into the Lord. Whatever we have to work, we have to work, we have to work. And then return has to be left to the God only. So, and worship Him. We have to worship Him. Capital H is used. Him means God. Thus, we have no right to expect anything from mankind for the work we do. Whatever the service we do it, wholeheartedly we have to do. Selflessly we have to do. Without any doubt we have to do. Without any return we have to do. So that is a God's work. So God appreciates it according to Swami Vivekananda. The Lord Himself works incessantly and is ever without attachment. God also working incessantly, continuously working without expecting anything. So, just as water cannot wet the lotus leaf. You know, lotus leaf, if a water drop is on it, it can't blots it. It only floats on it. So, work cannot bind the unselfish man by giving rise to attachment to results. So, as long as people are there on the earth, it is not a permanent abode for them, so that non-attachment or unattachment is always be recommended. The selfless and unattachment man may live in the very heart of a crowded and sinful city. He will right be touched by sin. As long as people do have a selfless work and selfless service, no sin can touch them. So that's about the thing being stated by Swami Vivekananda.